All right, so these are my audience members. There's 6 of them. All right, you can turn off your videos. All right, so I did my persuasive speech on if video games cause violent and criminal behavior in children and teens. So video games have been around for a really long time, since the 70s when they started, and they've advanced much more since. Some of the most popular often include violence. They're popular among children and teens, but they also are very popular with adults as well. According to Harvard Health Publishing, 97% of children in the US from the ages 12 to 17 play video games, and 2/3 of those games include violence and any sort of violence and vulgar content. Though they're popular among children and teens, a question's always been asked and disputed between experts and parents if these games will cause uh, have an effect on their children in the real world when it comes to like being violent or any sort of like mannerisms that could cause in them. So throughout my presentation, I'm going to try to show you that these games do not cause violence in children and teens or any sort of adults. So children and violent video games, according to sciencenewsforstudents.org, around 90% of US teens play video games, and some of the most popular that are played by them are Grand Theft Auto and the Call of Duty franchises. These franchises are very popular, but have been bashed because of their violent nature. Most of their games include physical violence, firearms, explicit language, and sexual content. And it's just argued among parents that it's not good for children. But according to the University of Oxford, a study was done on 2,800 kids from the UK, and their ages ranged from 14 to 15. The guardians of the children filled out a questionnaire about their aggressive tendencies before the whole study was done, and then the questionnaire was compared to the children playing a violent game. And the study was said, despite the null findings identified in the present study, which shows that there was no correlation found between their aggressive tendencies before and after, showing that they didn't become any more aggressive or destructive or build any mannerisms from the violent game they played. And the National Library of Medicine also did a study. It was based on questionnaires like the one that the University of Oxford did. Based on questionnaires, behavioral aggressiveness measures, sexist attitudes, mental health, and much more. They did it off of all this, such as sexist attitudes, because many games have sort of sexist tendencies throughout the game, such as Grand Theft Auto. So the participants would either play Grand Theft Auto, which is a pretty violent game, or The Sims 3, which is a non-violent game at all, or no games at all for 2 months daily. After that, they would do the same tests and the same questionnaires, and no changes were observed between groups that played the violent and non-violent games. So they all came back about the same. No one was more violent than the other when it came back to the questionnaires. And then there are some pros to violence in video games. According to Vitana.org, using different studies from around the world, it has found that video games with violence provide a safe way to release emotions. It's better than, they say that because it's better than a child taking it out on someone else or a family member. So it gives them a way just to sit down and take out those emotions through the game. This was found out because from the 90s up until now, youth crime has decreased by 50%, which is around the same time video game sales began to skyrocket throughout the 90s and 2000s. And violent video games were included within the rise in sales. Another pro to violent video games that was discovered by the American Psychological Association was that playing video games, including violent ones, can boost children's creativity and problem-solving skills. Although these games have a lot of violence in them, a lot of the time they have some sort of problem solving throughout them, and it can boost them. A very important thing that the games can do for kids and teens is boost their moods, as they are often very enjoyable for the player. Conclusion: video games have been around for a long time and will continue to be that way. Doesn't show that they're gonna go down in sales ever. Studies have been done by plenty of prestigious universities that show there's no correlation between violence in video games and real world violence among kids and teens. Along with the studies that have debunked the myth, there have also been many studies that have shown there are benefits to children and teens as well. And as long as this is argued, there it's never gonna decrease video game sales. They're always gonna be high and played by children around the world.
Good job.